Welcome into Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and frankly, we got some bad injury news from your Seattle Seahawks. This is just coming across the desk, and the injury bug has really been hitting the Seahawks hard, and it hasn't been able to help your team get in the right spot. I mean, frankly, you lost that Tampa Bay game because you just didn't have enough bodies. Looks like you're going to be down a few more as well. Before we get into it, I want to set a record here at Seahawks Today. Last week, we broke the record for most subscribers in a single video, and that was 200 subscribers. I want to set that record again this week on this video today. So make sure if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, you do so right now. All right, man. Seattle's going to be without their outside linebacker, Derrick Hall, for an extended period of time. It looks like Hall's going to be dealing with an oblique injury. Now, for those of you who don't know what an oblique is, that's fine. That's that core muscle right over here on the side. Now, it might sound like a familiar injury to you. Well, it's similar to the injury that Jadeveon Clowney had a few years ago that kept him in and out of the lineup back when he was a Seattle Seahawk. Now, this is coming to us from Brady Henderson, talking about the oblique injury and Derrick Hall's nature of how long he is going to be out. Right now, it is week to week. He won't have to go on IR, which is a big deal because that would have cost the Seahawks Hall for at least 4 weeks. But it doesn't sound like you are going to get him back before the bye week. So you're going to miss him for this Jags game and the Houston Texans game at minimum. We know that Mike McDonald doesn't like to come out and divulge a bunch of injury news if he doesn't have to. So the fact that he's already saying that Hall is going to be out for a little bit, that tells you how bad the injury is. Now, losing Hall is a bigger deal than it normally would be because you're already without DeMarcus Lawrence as well. This defensive line has been good, but they are also very clearly thin. You went into this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Lawrence. You knew you weren't going to have him, but you thought you'd have Derrick Hall, and he left the game pretty early on. You can see here from Brady Henderson's next tweet, not only did he leave early and Lawrence not going, you felt the missing nature of both of these players. Seattle was only to generate a couple of hits on Baker. It felt like he had all day back there to throw, and he picked apart this defense. Obviously, you had injuries in the secondary as well, but I think the D-line injuries are a much bigger deal because for most of this year, you were able to get pressure on opposing defenses, and that's why you didn't feel some of the losses that you felt in the secondary like you did on Sunday. Another key important thing to point out as well is Tampa Bay clearly had a plan for the Seahawks that the Seahawks weren't able to fix by adding in more blitzes into their game plan. Now, the defense obviously looked really rough. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to come in here and tell you guys when you give up 38 points in a football game, you're going to lose that game 9 times out of 10. Also, it felt like whenever you needed a big stop on third down, it frankly just didn't come from anybody on this team. Now, I think the easiest, quickest route to getting that fixed is getting this pass rush fixed. We've seen multiple weeks. I've come on this channel multiple times and said this team is elite. But it's elite when you have that pass rush continuing to get in the backfield. And Derrick Hall has been one of the top guys at it right now when it comes to pass rush win rate. He's winning 25% of the time. That's good enough for that's good enough for 9th in the NFL right now in that outside linebacker position. Obviously, we already went into it. Baker just took advantage. I mean, he kept finding Emeka Egbuka down the field, big plays. If there was a third down and short, he found Otten or he found Godwin. And sometimes you can't ask your secondary to sit back in coverage for 4, 5, 6 seconds. If you can get that pressure going from that interior defensive line or the outside defensive line, that can be a big deal for you. It was clear that you missed Hall and you missed Lawrence in a big way. Now, when is Hall going to be able to return? I've already said that he's week to week. In fact, I don't expect him to come back until after the bye week. It might not even be until the week after that. I mentioned Jadeveon Clowney's injury. He was in, out, in, out, in, out, snip, snap, snip, snap. You know, to quote the great Michael Scott, he was back and forth in your defense because he had that core injury. Core injuries, the best way to get them to heal is to take time off. Derrick Hall doesn't have that opportunity. Now you look at that rush edge position, you're really, really thin. DeMarcus Lawrence is your 1. Derrick Hall is your 2. Where is your 3? I mean, you can look at this edge depth chart right here. You already have DeMarcus Lawrence out. Hopefully he's back here quickly with that quad injury. But more importantly, you don't have Derrick Hall. That means you got to go with Jared Ivey, a guy who was inactive in the last game. It was so bad to the point where you had Boye Mafe playing on the opposite side of Uchenna Nwosu, slightly different positions as opposed to that Sam linebacker where Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe, they're more in a stand-up position, whereas that rush edge, you got to get your hand in the dirt. I'm not saying that this defensive edge position isn't good anymore. I'm not saying that they're not elite. I've come on this channel multiple times and said this is a good defense. This is an elite defense. We're talking about Legion of Boom. But the reason you saw Legion of Room on Sunday and a lot of space for the wide receivers of Tampa Bay to go after you was because you didn't have that pass rush, because you don't have the depth in that position room. So when you lose a player like Hall, when you lose a player like DeMarcus Lawrence, there's a pretty clear gap. Now, there are a couple of different fixes that you can go with here if you're Seattle. You can either, 1, ride out the storm. Hey, man, injuries happen. Guys are going to come back. You're going to get healthy. Or 2, you can make a trade. We're going to dive into both of those options here in the rest of the video. But before we do that, I'd like to get your initial reaction. Would you rather have the Seahawks ride out the storm? Hey, Derrick Hall will be back. DeMarcus Lawrence will be back. It's all going to be okay. Trust with the horses that have gotten you here. Or do you go and make a big splash? Do you go make a trade for a player that is on a team that isn't doing so hot? Let me know down below in the comments. I want to tell you about the proud sponsors of today's video, because today's video is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on any 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you could cash in. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are overhyped? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. This Sunday, I've got a little 2-pick power play. Sam Darnold, more passing yards than expected. Daniel Jones against the Arizona Cardinals defense, more passing yards than expected. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. So I talked about option 1, and that, of course, is stay the course. Trust the process, if you will. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be back soon. In fact, head coach Mike Macdonald said that he will be in practice at different points this week. Does that mean he'll be able to play? Not necessarily, but he will be back in action. He will be there for your squad. Derrick Hall also, hopefully it's one of those oblique injuries where he's able to play through it. Yeah, he's not going to be the pass rusher that he was before the injury, but hey, 80% of Derrick Hall is better than no Derrick Hall. And you also now have an opportunity to test out some of those younger players. Can you see what Jared Ivey has, right? He's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's long. These are all things that you can use in that rush edge position. Maybe this is a good spot to let the young kid go out and eat. He did pretty well in the preseason. I think this is the trust the process route. I think it's a route that would be preferred if you're talking to people inside of that organization. It very much feels like the Seahawks are a we all we got, we all we need. Everyone kind of wraps around each other. Next man up in the process. That's going to be able to get you to that position that you need, right? There is also the opportunity here for maybe someone to pop. Maybe Connor O'Toole has been in that Sam linebacker position. Maybe he gets to go into that rush edge spot and he explodes, right? Jared Ivey, I've already mentioned him a bunch of times. He did really well in that Green Bay Packers preseason game, had multiple tackles, couple tackles for a loss. Maybe this is his opportunity to show everyone not just why he made the team, but that he can take the next step forward. This does seem to be the plan that Seattle is going to go with, and it's the plan that I expect. It's why it's option number 1, Because Seattle has shown time and time again, especially with John Schneider, that he doesn't want to make the big splashy trade. He wants to find a group of guys that fit the skills that they need for their position rooms and to trust the coaching staff to coach them up and make big plays. Now, there is the fun option. There is option 2. Could Seattle go out and make a trade? Go make a big splash for a defensive end, rush edge type of player that is on a team that, well, frankly, they're not going to make it to the postseason. There's one name that continues to pop up and pop up and pop up and pop up and pop up, and that's Trey Hendrickson out in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow isn't coming back anytime soon. I don't know if you know this. They just traded for Joe Flacco. Jake Browning was so bad that they said, we need 41-year-old geriatric Joe Flacco to come out here and play quarterback for us. If that says we're mailing it in, I don't know what does. So maybe there's a package there that you could be willing to move on from some of your younger players or from some draft picks. Now, Hendrickson is an older player, right? He is a guy that you would also have to re-sign almost immediately because he is on a 1-year deal and he wants to get paid big money. So it would be a big move. It would be a splashy move. Will this trade actually happen? I think there's some scenarios where it possibly could, but I kind of doubt it. It is fun to think about, though. Like, can you imagine what Trey Hendrickson could be in this defense? You've seen the growth from a guy like Leonard Williams. You've seen the growth from a guy like Byron Murphy. I mean, Boye Mafe, Derrick Hall, they're making guys miss. Imagine what a superstar could already do into this defense, and you need an elite pass rusher that you don't have. I still don't think that you're going to be willing to give up the capital that the Bengals clearly want and desire to get him. So, unfortunately, I think you're trusting the process for this injury, and frankly, you got to hope that some of the younger players step up in Derrick Hall's absence. Like I said, we're trying to beat the record for most subscriptions in a single video. Please go down and subscribe to the channel. If you have a friend that loves Seahawks videos, tell them to come in and subscribe. We've got daily content coming out every single day. That's why they call it daily on your Seattle Seahawks. Until next time, I'll see you later.